On your roof, your marker down, 355s.
355s,
Yeah.
that's right, yeah.
So then you'd mark out a 355, which is 175 centimeters long.
So you're normally marking this with chalk on the roof?
Yeah, like roofing chalk works.
Okay,
Uh,
that's
yeah.
fine. Yeah.
And then after that, you'd want to keep the rails will then simply go off. Go down. You don't want any more than 16 inches of overhang.
Okay.
So normally what we would do is you'd find the top mark of your panel. You want it between 16 inches and 13 inches. So normally we mostly do 14 and a half.
Okay, good.
And then after that, you want the mounts also to not be the first and last mount to not be more than 16 inches from the edge of the panel. So going a foot is pretty common. Just go a foot after that. And that is where your first mount will get placed.
Boom.
And then after that, it's every 4 feet. Yeah.
Okay, every 4 feet.
And then you'll do that. And if your last mount is over the length of your row, then just simply throw it where it would go before the end.
Yeah, just move it back?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
okay.
move it back. So if your last mount spacing is only 2 feet, that's better than not.
Like, for example, if the last mount was...
Well, yeah, if your edge of the panel was pretty much here, and 4 feet would get you over here,
Yeah.
you just simply have your last mount right there. So you'd only have like a needed 2.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, that's clear. Yeah.
What was tool cuts? And you grab. You'll need 3 L brackets. As well, you can take your 1/2 inch nut bolts. When you screw these down, you're going to want to put the 1/2 inch nut in first because it won't fit. And then use minimum 4 screws per base.
Okay.
And then you also could have your mount. It's pretty maneuverable in these, so you can have it facing whichever way.
Okay, yeah. And that just has a nut that goes on top of that to hold
Yeah,
it.
and then there's just a 1/2 inch nut that you can simply put on top. It's good to keep it loose at first for when you put the rails on, as installing the K-nut into the rails can be a bit tricky when they're tight.
If we could just put one rail and have
Yeah.
like the trick for sliding the rail in.
Well, I actually should get this. Then you take the rail, put it on. It's kind of good to keep the base a little loose so you have some wiggle room, and then you're going to want to take the K-nut and loosen it just enough so it doesn't fall off the bolt, but you can at least pivot it. And in these rails, you want to hook the K-nut into the top of the rail first, and it should just be able to slide right in. And then it's kind of good to give it a little bit of a finger tight when you go to the next one, because when you twist the rail for the next mount, you can pop out the previous one.
Oh yeah, okay. And And then there's adjustability depending on how you're doing it. You can have up higher like this, or you can have it, up higher like that, or you can have it all the way down at the bottom, right?
Yeah. So what we tend to do to make it easier, as most roofs do have some dips in it, to make it look good, we usually take the two end mounts on the row of rails and we'll actually put them halfway between, and we'll leave all the ones in between loose. So in this case, it would just be these two. You leave the one, and then pretty much that'll just make this level.
Okay, yeah.
And then you just pretty much tighten this wherever it sits, because
And what is the torque setting on your guns for tightening these?
it's a pretty good question. There isn't really a torque spec for them.
Okay.
But I would say like 20 foot-pounds, I would say, is plenty.
Okay, yeah.
They can handle quite a lot before you end up stripping it and breaking it. So after you have the rail on, you would then start by marking out where your rails are going to go. You only have to mark out one rail. I'd recommend marking out the rail in which the micros are being mounted to, because
Okay.
you'll kind of get a better idea of the spacing, so you don't hit, so the panels don't hit one of your micros. So in this case, we're going to start by probably putting 2.5 inches in for enough for your end clamp. And then each one of your 355s is 103.8 or 104 centimeters. So when you mark it, you just want to make one mark for the end, and then you want to add 1.5 centimeters for your mid clamp width.
So when you're doing it on the roof, you'll mark it out like this every time,
Yeah.
so you can do it effectively. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then when you put that in there, normally we'll make a simple X for micros, and then for the ground lugs as well, you can just pretty much throw them on, and you just want to make sure that when you pre-mark out your rails, to just have all the accessories within a panel width. If you had on the edge, the frame will hit it.
Okay.
And with your doubles, you'll. So,
Do you find it's better to put the micros on the bottom rail or the top rail?
if it's two rows of portrait, you actually
Yeah.
want this to be as close in between them as possible. So if this was the double row and you had another row of panels above it, you would actually have the micro facing upwards due to the shortness of the whip lengths on the panels,
Okay.
which should be enough, as because you'll have minimum of 13 inches of overhang, the panel should always be able to clear the micro.
Okay.
The rail will fit above. And then it just simply allows you, here, I'll actually throw some first. Use your microinverter mount kit.
So in this demonstration, this is the bottom row of panels. There'll be another 2 sets of rails up above over there. And with those ones, the micro would be on the top rail?
No, this would be the micro for this row. So you'll have your panels. Your one panel will be here, and then
Yeah.
your next panel, which will be right over top of it.
Yeah.
You grab positive and negative out of the panel right over the top, and you'll either plug it into port 1 or port 2, you're choosing.
Yeah.
And the width should be long enough to reach down. And then when you put the lower panel on, you simply plug it into the same.
Okay.
So your sets of panels will be one on top of the other.
Yeah, okay. It's not in lengthwise, it's in vertically. That's the sets of panels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that is an option. If you wanted to go widthwise, you also can, because with the micros being fed to one side of the panel, your side panel could actually reach it. So yeah, if you wanted to wire like that,
You could.
You could.
But generally you do it the other way.
Yeah, most of the time we'll do it like this. he is actually going, if he would like to mount it, the panels in portrait in groups of 2, then you can also mount the inverter the other way up so that it gives the whips a little bit closer to the panel
Okay.
next to it.
Right. If you're doing it side by
Yeah,
side.
if you're doing it side by side.
Okay.
It's just because when you have it installed facing down, and you're gonna do it more in like a lengthwise vertical, joining it too, the whips on the panels won't be able to reach these if they're underneath the top rail.
Okay. I'm gonna stop.